We're pleased to welcome remotely from Indiana, Dr. Karissa Niehoff, Executive Director of the National Federation of High School Associations. Dr. Niehoff, 7 states still really haven't had any sports this school year. A lot of others have had some form of masking mandates. Some states have even delayed their winter sports season. South Carolina really hasn't done any of that. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, Larry, first, it's great to be with you
Sure.
again, and please allow me to say Happy New Year to your listeners.
Absolutely.
I hope you all are well, and thank you to you and your team for what you do to keep this story alive. You are correct. I would call it almost like a 6.8 states, because we have Nevada that's actually sponsoring Girls Flag. They
Okay.
were one of the 7 that hadn't done anything, and they've just started that. So, but we do have the other states that still have not started. In terms of South Carolina, I think they have done a fantastic job paying attention to a number of really important indicators. First and foremost, around COVID. Secondly, of course, around the risk mitigation strategies, the education strategies, and doing their very best to pay attention locally to where it might be okay to go back, which sports they might be able to enjoy right away or activities. And based on what we hear from the state office, it's been a successful experience. And of course, we want to pay attention to how well their kids are doing when they're not engaged.
Sure.
So South Carolina has taken that into account as well, very well.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you what you think are the key metrics to watch for athletic directors, for principals, and particularly for us as parents.
Well, first, you want to obviously work collaboratively with your local school and health agencies, and of course the staff within the school, and they are naturally working with their state agencies. So if you're looking at numbers and trends in contagion, and we really want to pay attention to the denominator in that equation, which is number of tests that are still being delivered. And you want to try to get down to, in many states they say that 10% and below is getting into your green to go area, but in some states it's 15. And in some states, they're just looking at trend lines,
right,
where there's a 2-week kind of a gating period that you think, okay, we're holding steady. As you're looking at numbers themselves very quantitatively, you want to look at what strategies you have in place based on where you're living. What are your own local demographics? How big are your schools? What kind of facilities do you have? Are you equipped to be able to social distance where appropriate? Do you have masks for your kids? Do you have strategies in place? And where all of those things are addressed and folks feel like they're ready to go, we encourage folks to give it a try.
That seems to be the big difference now, isn't it? From maybe in the fall, is now the numbers seem to be a little bit lower for younger people, that if the numbers look pretty good, give it a shot?
Yeah, we've learned a little bit since this whole thing began back in March. Significantly, we learned that contact on surfaces is not as much of a threat as we first thought. So now if you're in a situation where, for example, you can have 5 or 6 basketballs on the sideline, and if they're touched by anybody but players, or the official, maybe you throw in a sanitized basketball.
Right.
So we can address things like that. We've also learned that the younger people tend to do a little better physically if they do contract COVID-19.
Right.
We don't have a ton of research on this, but we do have a lot of anecdotal reporting from our state associations that were able to do things in the fall, even volleyball, where they had very few situations where schools couldn't finish a season or finish a championship due to COVID. We've struggled with contact tracing. We've never really gotten a good handle on that in high schools because we really don't know where kids go outside of school. So we suspect, kind of in the bigger picture, that most of the spread for student athletes has probably occurred in situations outside of the field of competition itself. We're just not hearing from our states and schools that seems to be a spreader event.
Yeah. All right. Very interesting take on all of this. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Karissa Niehoff, Executive Director of the National Federation of High School Associations. Still to come, ever want to go to one of those fancy film festivals like Cannes or Sundance? Well, you can do that by staying right on your couch here on the island. Stay with us for that.